So I've been uploading a few videos recently around decluttering, and one or two of you reached out just to say, Kirsty, please don't stop uploading videos on personal finance because I really enjoyed them. So you don't have to worry, I am going to continue to talk about shopping habits, about money mindset shifts and other elements of personal finance. But you know, one of the reasons that I've been sharing my decluttering journey with you is that it genuinely has been instrumental, along with my no-buy year, in really improving my finances. And in today's video, I want to share with you why. Number one, I buy much less than I used to. Now, as someone who previously loved to shop, deciding to declutter my home meant taking a cold, harsh look at the reality of all of the money I'd spent on stuff over the years, on clothes that I'd never even worn, on things that had spent pretty much their entire lives in the back of a cupboard, on things for projects that I never even got started, on things that, to be quite honest, I couldn't even tell you why I bought them in the first place. And as I sat there surrounded by all of this stuff, I couldn't help notice that what I was actually looking at was literally thousands of pounds in goods that I'd never even used. And to be honest, it made me feel really quite sick. And that money could have been utilized in so many better ways than things that were just unused and unloved. And the feelings that arose from that experience, the feelings of just genuine guilt and shame, I never want to feel that way again. I'm not suggesting that I'm never again going to buy something that ends up being a bit of a poor choice in the end. I'm only human after all. But these days, I genuinely think before I buy pretty much anything. And as a result, I've become much more discerning with my purchases and just generally bought less, which has helped my finances immensely. Apologies for any change in lighting, by the way. I came and sat in here to film because it was so beautiful and bright this morning, but Mother Nature seems to be having a good old laugh at me because there seems to have been some clouds develop and the light is going in and out. So apologies for that. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Number two, new focus on quality over quantity. Once I started to declutter, and as I continued to do so, I started to notice how many things I had that were kind of broken, or they hadn't been worn much or used much, but actually they were not in that good condition. And I started to notice a bit of a pattern. Many of those things were originally bought quite cheap, or maybe they weren't that great quality to begin with. And yet some of the items that I'd maybe paid a bit more of a premium for, or I'd been a little bit more conscious at looking at the fabric composition or something like, or you know, the quality of the workmanship, well, many of those things were still in great condition and could still be used. I also started adding up the value of all of these cheap, often unloved things, and the value came to hundreds, if not thousands of pounds combined. And at best, this was headed for the charity shop, and at worst, for landfill. There was also this kind of weird irony in that previously I often wouldn't have allowed myself some of the more expensive, more higher quality items because I would have deemed them too expensive. But there I was, sat there with all of this stuff that had cost me the same value of those items, if not more. And yet if I'd have bought those items rather than all this cheap tat, then those items probably would still be in good condition today to still be used and worn. So it was just such a waste of my money in many cases. Now, of course, better quality items often come with a higher price tag, but because I'm being much more discerning with what I buy and I'm generally buying less, then my budget can allow for these potentially more expensive items. Now you might be thinking, well, if you're buying more expensive stuff, how is that helping your finances? Well, as the sayings go, buy cheap, buy twice, and you get what you pay for. Sometimes, or certainly I've found that buying cheap can sometimes be a bit of a false economy, and if you buy something that is good quality, that you can wear again and again and again, it still looks in great shape, then actually it saves you money in the long run. Number three, space costs money. So I think one of the biggest kind of wake-up moments for me was when I decided that I wanted to purchase my own home, and I was very specifically looking for a house that was quite a bit bigger than the one that I was currently living in. But you know, I don't have any children, and at this point, no plans to have them. So, you know, it's not like I need 4 bedrooms or, you know, as a necessity or anything. So I started to ask myself, why? Why do you want this much bigger house? And amongst other reasons, just some of them being that I just really like a big old house. But I realized that one of the reasons was so that I had more space to store all of my stuff. And I realized how, quite frankly, this was utterly ridiculous for various reasons, but one of them being financial. Now, I know it's obviously very dependent on multiple factors, one particular being location, but generally speaking, houses with a larger footprint are more expensive to buy than smaller homes. And that's just the acquisition cost. Larger homes are more expensive to heat and to run, they're more expensive to insure, and so on. So every square foot of space that you have has a cost associated to it. And if you're looking for a bigger home, and you know, the main driver is just to be able to store your stuff, particularly when so many of us have stuff that we've never even used in years, well, it's not particularly financially savvy. By the way, I think it's worth pointing out that houses in the UK are generally quite a bit smaller than houses in other parts of the world. In England, the typical home is about 700 to 800 square foot, compared to like 2,500 square foot in the US and about 1,950 square foot in Canada. So our houses here are quite small. So if you hear people in the UK moaning about size of houses, yeah, it's because they're quite small. I'm actually quite lucky, as in a weird twist of fate, I did actually end up purchasing a house that is bigger than my previous home. But because I want it to remain uncluttered, because I want it to feel lovely and light and airy like it did when I viewed the property, then when I'm looking to purchase something, I'm not only considering the purchase cost, but I'm also considering whether there is anywhere for this to go in my home. Do I even have space for this thing that I'm considering purchasing? Because space is a costly and valuable asset. This, once again, has led to me buying less and therefore saving money. Number 4, reduced impulse spending. Now, in fairness, I do think my no-buy year is doing some of the heavy lifting here. That really changed my relationship with impulse spending. But another thing I noticed when faced with all of my clutter, all of these things that I couldn't even fathom why I bought them in the first place, is that I noticed how many of them had been bought really without thinking at all, just simply on impulse. Seeing the amount of money that has left my house in the form of clutter has really made me ask questions about whether I need or even want this thing that's kind of randomly captured my attention. Reducing impulse spending has made a dramatic difference to my finances. At one point, I worked out that I was saving an additional £200 to £300 a month by simply stopping buying unplanned random crap. That's over £2,000 a year, just insane. If you've been on a decluttering journey yourself, I'd love to hear, you know, did this change your relationship with shopping? Did it change your habits? Has it improved your finances in a positive way? I'd really love to hear from you guys. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. The sun is going crazy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.